Good morning. What is up, guys? Good to see everybody. Happy Wednesday morning, 9 a.m. Eastern. Wake up and dial. Yes, for those of you not joining me live right now, I hope it's because you're already hopping on those phones, making calls, getting deals. Today, we're going to make some calls. We're going to go over some stuff. Last time, for anyone that wasn't with us on Monday, got to see a really good call on what it looks like with someone who's like, how do we go through the process with someone that doesn't really sound that motivated? If we're like, they're kind of on the fence, yeah, they're saying they have a property and yeah, they're saying they'd sell it, and they're going through the conversation with us, but really doesn't feel like there's going to be anything there. How do we do that so that we can really kind of check all the boxes and make sure we're not kind of letting someone go too soon? That could be a deal. How how do we make sure that we're able to have that conversation but also not have it take like 40 minutes? So that's what we did Monday. Today, take a sip of my tea, non-caffeinated. I also, pro tip, guys, don't, especially if you're like newer ish to cold calling or sales, anything like that, don't have a ton of caffeine, before or during. You don't want to be kind of jittery and anxious when you're making these calls, and especially if it's something that you're kind of learning, to do. You don't want to have that extra feeling of nervousness when you're looking to hop on the phone with people. Today, some stuff I want to go over before we hop in some calls. So we've talked a lot about setting expectations before, right? The beginning of the conversation. What does that look like? When we open up, we set expectations, and that's three things, right? Time frame. How long? Is this conversation going to be? Agenda. What is it we're going to be talking about? What are you going to be asking me? What are you going to be talking to me about? And outcome. Okay, like what are the acceptable outcomes at the end of this conversation? That's what we want when we set expectations. But today I'd like to dive a little bit deeper, and hopefully we're able to get some good conversations with some sellers on the phone. Digging more into kind of the midsection of our conversation with sellers. The real kind of like meat and potatoes of the motivation, right? What does that look like? How do we really kind of ask more about that? How do we really kind of learn more about their situation and ask good questions and really figure out the whole situation? There's a lot of kind of different questions we can ask, a lot of different ways it can go. But this is the most important part of the conversation. When we get to this part, like this is where 80% of the sale is made. So it's really important that we do a good job and thoroughly kind of ask, all the right questions and really kind of check all the boxes, before we kind of get to making an offer. Because everything that we uncover in this midsection, that's what really tells us what our offer is going to be, or what it can be, or how good of a deal or how not good of a deal this is going to be able to make. And then also, hey, is there anything that'll blow this deal up? This is where that would get uncovered. Cool. So let's hop in to try and make some calls. Let's call some people in Florida. Got some people in Florida here. Let's bring up my phone. All right. Now, guys, one thing I talk about a lot. Simplest thing you can do, if you only listen to 30 seconds of this whole call, and you only take away one thing, it'll be this right here. Every single time you talk to someone. Every, oh, we got Ronnie joining us. Hello, Ronnie. Happy New Year. Good to see you. Thanks for joining. You came in at just the right time. I left everybody on kind of a cliffhanger. I was saying how if people only listen to 30 seconds of today's entire call, it'll be this 30 seconds. And then you joined in and they had to wait. So, and I know you've heard me say this before. Most important thing. So today, one of the things I want to kind of talk a little bit more about in depth is sort of the mid, the mid portion, of a conversation when talking with the seller, right? I've talked about setting expectations, but today I want to get more into, how do we talk more about motivation and learning about what's going on and the house and all this other stuff. But most importantly, every single person we should always ask is, um, have you thought about listing it with a realtor? Have you thought about renting it? Have you thought about fixing it up and just selling it yourself? Have you thought about, just holding on to it? Basically, those are the four kind of main ones, but pretty much you want to ask the obvious questions of their other options, right? For whatever their obvious options are. Another example could be if you're talking to a seller and if they're older, maybe they had mentioned they had kids, maybe they didn't mention that at all, and I would still say, like, hey, have you thought about, I don't know if you have kids or not, but have you thought about maybe just kind of hanging on to it and maybe passing it down to them, or kind of handing it over to them. We want to ask, hey, why not go with any of your other options? So important, Ronnie. But let me ask you, while you're here, I was just about to start making some calls. How are you doing? Is there anything specific that I can help you with today? Right. And how when you typically talk with the seller and you how long are you talking with them, like, before you try to pitch them on creative finance? Okay. Mhm. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, yeah. Oh, no worries, no worries. So, um, do when you kind of first call them, so it sounds like you kind of just, um, you know, hey, this is Ronnie. You'd spoke to my assistant, here's, you kind of just review the notes real quick, and then you get right into the offer on the creative terms. Does that sound about right? Yeah, so a couple things. There is some, you know, kind of truth to where, the redundancy can be a bit much. So the issue you're kind of running into right now is you're jumping to the offer really quick, and especially if your goal is to, hey, I want to buy creative finance deals, or I'm going to get creative finance deals under contract. It is very hard. Cash offer is one thing. I mean, I don't even recommend it for a any kind of offer. But it's one thing for someone to agree to sell their home, you know, for a cash offer, and very straight to the numbers. That happens sometimes. But to convince someone, hey, let's go into this relationship for the next 20, 5, 10, 20 years, to where I'm going to be taking over your mortgage and all this other stuff, this long-term relationship, to where there needs to be like a massive, foundation of trust. It's really hard to, even if it is something they would say yes to, even if it is something that, is a good fit for them. If we don't build that rapport with them, it's like pretty much 0% chance of it happening. So, and same thing with I personally, who do you use for cold callers? Is it like a, I don't know if you use Wazoo, or if you use, do you use like a overseas, like a Philippines or like Egypt based VA company? Okay. That's fine. I mean, it's not that important. I know. Do you facilitate like the cold callers? Like, do you kind of, are you kind of overseeing, well, not necessarily managing the cold callers, but is it you, or is it the other investors that say, "Hey, these are the questions we ask"? Um, okay. Mhm. Yeah, got it. Okay. So so it's kind of perfectly fits into what I wanted to talk about today, which was kind of the whole midsection. So when when we talk with the seller, we um there's a couple things going on with when you're talking to them, and then you're kind of jumping straight to the offer. One, during the one, we kind of want to talk to them whether they say yes, they're open to creative finance terms or not, even if that's your goal, our goal is to really find a motivated seller. And then the whole point of sub two, it's not to only do sub two. It's, hey, we have multiple we can wholesale this as a cash offer. We can do sub two and take it over creative finance. You could, I don't know if you're looking to buy rentals yourself, like that's an option. Or, you can, there's novations grant and all this other stuff, and you might, there's still a bunch that I'm still kind of learning. But even if it's only one or two that and feel comfortable offering at that moment, what we want to do is we want to go into the conversation and just learn about the situation. Hey, what's kind of going on? What's got you, even considering selling, stuff like that. Because the VAs, it's a very, I personally, I don't like my VAs asking a lot of questions. I don't want them asking, creative finance terms or anything like that, because if the person asks them, I don't want them to explain anything. Just because, especially if they're asking about creative finance terms, you want that to be you that's answering those questions. You don't want to lose leads or have people kind of turned off because the VAs, that typically they're not, educated on creative finance and sub two and all this stuff. So, if a question's brought up and they can't answer that, or, they're not able to handle that question well, then it's a negative for the conversation. So what we want. Got it. Um, but yeah, either way, that's, it's not the end of the world. That's my personal preference with VAs. So whether someone says yes, they're open terms or not open terms, and same thing with kind of the information, that they give, sometimes it's wrong, something's missed, but there's a lot that you still don't know, or that we don't know about the situation. And so one, the way, how do we kind of have a conversation with them without being, redundant? So one is, this is where setting expectations is really important, right? Because this kind of sets you up for the whole call. The way, and setting expectations is three things: time frame, how the questions going on in the seller mind is, time frame, how long is this going to be? Agenda, hey, what is this even going to be about? What are we talking about? What are you going to be asking me? And then three, acceptable outcomes. What's going to happen at the end of this call here? So basically what we want to tell them is, we want to give them a time frame. We want to say, hey, this is kind of the agenda. This is some of the things we're going to be talking about. And then three, these are the acceptable outcomes. So what does that look like? Hey, Ms. Seller, I was just calling. I saw you had spoke with one of our assistants the other day about your property on 123 Main Street, that you're considering selling. What I would like to do is real quick, takes maybe 15 minutes, and real simple. Just ask some questions about, the property condition. I know they've kind of already asked you some basic stuff, but learn a little bit more about kind of the situation and what exactly you're kind of looking for. And then at the end of the conversation, one or two things can happen. If it sounds like something to where, we might be a good fit for you, and the house sounds like it might be a good, the property sounds like it might be a good fit for us, great. We can chat a little bit more about what those next steps would look like. And if at any point during the conversation, you say, hey, no, this isn't the right fit for me, or whatever the case, that's totally okay too. No harm, no foul. And look, Mr. Seller, either way, even if we're not the right fit for you, because we're not, we talk to a lot of people, we look at a lot of properties, and we're not always the perfect fit. Most of the time we really only buy a really small percentage of the houses that we look at. But either way, at the end of the conversation, my goal is to really just kind of help you, find what the best solution for you is. Fair enough. Boom, we just set expectations, right? Person's like, great, let's chat more. And so then you lead. So now we're leading into the main part of the whole conversation, right? Um, the way I like to do it is real simple. So we don't want to go into, hey, Mr. Sellers, so, you know, what, like, why are you thinking of selling this property? I don't like asking that right off the bat or trying to ask too deep of a motivation question, because when we do that, it's just it's too it's like going on the first date with someone and you sit down at the table and being like, hey, so do you want to have kids, like when you get older, like you want kids, right? It's like everyone's like, whoa, like that's kind of right off the bat. All right, that's a bit much, so, and sellers feel the same way when we try to ask kind of in-depth, questions, right off the bat. So what I like to do is, this is where I kind of review the notes that's there from the VA. So, we go, fair enough, and like, yeah, great, let's get into it. Great, so I'm looking here at the notes. It looks like it's 3-bed, 2-bath, about 1,400 square feet. Does that sound about right? Yep. Okay, great. Hey, let me ask you, what's the neighborhood like? Or ask any other kind of simple question about the property, right? It could, anything that, like, I like to bring it up on Zillow. And you could either look for any kind of question like, oh, hey, is there a garage? Does it have, I like to ask what the neighborhood's like. It's something that only they know. Typically, no one ever asks that question. Very simple. People are very comfortable with answering that question. So then he answers. He starts talking a little bit about the house for a minute or two, and then I'll ask, got it, hey, Mr. Have you considered, maybe just kind of listing it with an agent and sort of going that route, right? We can ask that one, depending on how long they've been talking for, how much information they gave, right? If they just give like a yes or no answer, or they're like still really shallow, hey, David, what we would do is you could just ask another simple question, like, hey, how's the neighborhood? It's nice. Got it. Okay. Hey, let me ask you, what's kind of got you even, considering selling the property? Blah, 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 blah. Got it. Okay. Let me ask, have you thought about maybe just trying to list it with the real estate agent and sort of go that route? No, blah, 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 blah. And what we're doing is we want to learn, why is this person, like, why are they considering selling their home? Right. And a lot of times they won't give you the answer you're looking for when you ask them, hey, what's got you considering selling your home? A lot of times, you'll have to kind of do a little bit more digging. And that's why we kind of ask all these other questions, because we're trying to figure out what is it they're looking to. Hey, is this your personal residence, or is this like a rental property or something for you? No, it's a personal residence. Okay, got it. And we're asking, well, have you thought about, maybe just like kind of renting it out and maybe doing that? No, I don't want to because of blah, blah, blah. Or, I've thought about it. Then we go one step deeper. Okay, well, what's kind of been keeping you from just, moving forward with that? Well, blank, right? Whatever their answer is. Well, I just, I don't know. I haven't really gotten around to it, or, I don't know. I've had a rental once 10 years ago and the tenants, wrecked the place, but whatever the answer is. And so, Ronnie, specifically for you, what we're doing this conversation is, when we're asking these questions and they're talking to us, this is rapport building. It's not like one of the things I misunderstood when I first started learning kind of sales, negotiating, effectively communicating, I thought rapport was like, oh, you like cats? So do I. Like, oh, you're from there. Like, I know that place. That's not rapport. I mean, those things can be great. They can be nice. But no, rapport is when a seller feels understood. That is so important. If they don't feel understood, you have no rapport with them, right? We have no rapport with them. So, and how do we understand? We have to ask good questions and listen, right? And that's 80% of what that's coming out of our mouth should only be questions. And we're looking to learn, more about them, more about their situation. What is it they're looking to do? And we're not just trying to get them to, through this process and to okay, here, now I can give you my offer, right? It's not about us trying to get what we want, which is giving the offer. Yes, the goal is to get the offer, get it accepted, but we handle the conversation of, no, we're asking questions to genuinely understand what this person truly wants and genuinely figure out what is the best fit for them. Because even if that's not you, when you get towards the end of that conversation, because that they understand, like, that goes through, and they see that, they understand, they're like, wow, this person like genuinely care. I don't know if you guys saw Monday, I was talking about, I helped Henry, who's a part of our club. He asked me to help him out with getting a property under contract, and the seller, they've spoken with tons of other people, other wholesalers and whatnot. Henry had them kind of to a certain number. They said they wouldn't take a penny less than like 300,000. I talked to the guy. They'd be willing to take 275. And then on top of that, he furthermore, like, and the next time I spoke with him, he's like, look, because I was just flat, I was like, I don't think we're going to be able to buy it because of this. And he's like, look, I really like it. He's like, you've been super genuine, you've been honest, blah, blah, blah. All these things. If someone else came, if anybody else called him and they had a higher offer, they're like, oh, we could pay 290, we could pay 300. I would almost guarantee you that he would say no, because even though they say a higher number, he doesn't trust them, and nobody's going to do business with someone they don't trust. So that's kind of the whole point of our conversation. And when you're able to build that trust through asking the questions and genuinely understanding where they're coming from, what's going on, and hey, how can I help this person the most? Even if it's a different option, you can still tell them, hey, well, here's what I can do. I'm not sure. I'll be honest. I think this is a better fit for you. If I were to purchase the home, here's kind of what I could do for you. Here's the best I could do. You will be so surprised how often, one, the trust and rapport that you build is like, it's unbreakable at that point, right? When you're telling them, go do something else, right? You're kind of giving them, it's like you're falling on the sword, so to speak. That's when you build these relationships with sellers. And that's when you also kind of have this rapport that it's okay if you don't get the deal signed today, because you have such a strong rapport. It's like, I'm not, maybe there's a family member or a best friend or someone that you're so close in a relationship with, and if I don't know, they wanted to sell their house, or if they ever told you like, oh yeah, I would sell you my house, you're not worried about that, like someone else making them an offer, because no matter, like, they're gonna come to you and ask, right? Same thing with the sellers. They're gonna come to you, like, they're not just gonna sell it overnight to someone else unless the other person was able to build really good rapport. But typically it's, yeah, that it's just, you don't see that happen. So building rapport and being and the genuine part, the reason why I kind of hit on that so hard, and I keep saying genuine, is when you focus on that principle, it's okay if you don't know all the perfect questions, right? You eventually, the more you keep learning, the more you keep kind of showing up at these calls and listening and whatnot, you'll pick up on all that over time. You're going to learn that over time. But if you just start every single call with, okay, how can I just genuinely help this person the most? One, we're no longer thinking about ourselves and our offer. We're focusing on them. So it takes away all the fear and the anxiety, because we're worried about someone else. So that's and like you're going to be so much smoother when talking to them. And two, it allows you such a large margin to like you can mess things up, but if it's kind of like if you look at like a sports team, right? If you ever played sports or even think of a job, if you ever worked a job, like, the person who on a sports team or at that job, it's just, they were terrible. They're like, oh my gosh, like how are you even on this team? How does this person even have this job? But they try so hard. Like they genuinely put in like 110% every time, and they give it their all, and they're supportive of everyone, and they're genuinely, you know, doing their very, very best to be that player on the team, or to be that, the best employee they could possibly be. And they're still there and they still have a job, and everyone still loves them because they're genuinely, everyone sees, that genuine side of them. Same thing comes when we're talking to sellers. So let's bring it back to actual questions that we ask, right? So we talked about asking, we want to ask those questions. Hey, have you thought about listing it? Have you thought about, renting it out, and we want to just, the principle is ask all the obvious options that are available to them. We want to ask all of them, all of them. Well, hey, have you thought about this? Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And then what that's going to do is that's going to open you up to just ask one level deeper. Okay, well, hey, what's kept you from, moving forward with that? Hey, is there any particular reason why, that wouldn't be a good fit for you? And push them in those directions, right? Right. What we want to be the reluctant buyer, right? And we want to attract the sellers to us. And the way we do that is by pushing them in the other directions. Right. Well, hey, I mean, look, John, I'll be honest, it costs maybe like, just kind of from what you've told me, my guess is it's probably around like 30 to 40 grand. I mean, you'd make more money if, I don't know if you have the money and whatnot, or whatever the case, but if you were to kind of spend 30, 40 yourself, fix it up, you can do the work yourself, save a ton of money on labor and whatnot. Um, and then list it. I mean, that would be the best fit for you to get, the absolute most amount of money. Well, look, I'm 75. I can't be, hanging up drywall and this and that or whatever, right? So we push them in these other directions, and we ask one level deeper. Hey, why? I heard you say that you couldn't do this. Why is that not a good fit for you? The other thing, the other kind of magical thing that happens when we do that, we ask one level deeper. This is also building rapport, because it shows that we're listening, right? Um if think about a relationship or a friend or someone, they're like, man, I'm really not feeling good today, and just like, oh, right, oh, I'm sorry to hear that. Wow, like that's it, okay. Or if they're like, oh man, I'm really not feeling good today. Oh, wow, you're not feeling good, like what's going on? Now you're like, oh, they're like, oh, this person's engaged, they care, they heard what I'm saying, they didn't just kind of give an automatic response. We want that same thing when we're talking to sellers, right? So when we ask that kind of next level, it shows that we're actually, one, builds rapport, it shows that we actually care and that we're listening. And then three, it gives us more information. Because what we're trying to get to, especially for like sub two, right? You're Ronnie, you had mentioned a lot of people, they want like 50% down payment, or or oh, it's well, I only want a 1 year term or 2 year term or something like that. There's reasons for a lot of times you can know exactly what a person will or won't say yes and no to before you guys even talk about numbers. And what I mean by that is hey, have you thought about, just kind of renting it out and going that route? We've thought about it, but it really wouldn't make sense. If we were to sell this house and move, we would really need to sell it and kind of take the money that we have in this house and, in order to buy the new place. Got it. So that probably means, or you can ask one step deeper. Like, what's an obvious question? Never feel like there's never a wrong question, really. There is, but like, just don't do like obvious, like that's just a bad question. Somebody shouldn't ask. What I mean is the ask questions like, oh well, I mean, have you guys thought of, you know, I mean, like, what if you rented it out for a year or a few years, and maybe you guys just lived in an apartment for a little bit, right? What we want is really in our conversation, we want childlike curiosity, right? A kid always asks, well, huh, well, why? Like, why not this? Well, like, why not that? Like, huh? Okay, you said that didn't like. Why doesn't that work for you? Right? That's the approach that we want to have when we're talking with our sellers and asking questions, right? So when they tell you, yeah, no, we wouldn't like, no, we would never consider living in an apartment for a year. Like, no, we definitely want to be in a house. Well, what did we just learn in that one question? We never even talked numbers. We know this, like, one, they're living in this house. Two, if they make any agreement with anyone to sell this house, it's gonna be to sell it and move into another house. Three, they need the money from this house to buy the other one. So it's like they're not going to be able to do a long-term thing. They're absolutely not willing to move into an apartment by any means. Um, so right off the bat, because the other thing we don't want is we don't want to, and the reason why it's so important that we approach every conversation with the seller of not, hey, I'm going to make a cash offer, or hey, I'm going to make a sub two offer, even if that's like what you're looking for personally. We don't want to do that up front, because and not just for seller, this is human psychology. It you know people are it repels them when we offer something that they don't want, right? So if just by asking them, so if you're offering them, like, trying to make a sub two offer, and all of it, you know and all those other questions, like, it clearly is not a good fit for them, it's going to push them away, and it's going to kind of turn them off, right? So that's why we kind of want to ask all these questions up front, so that we know what's a good fit for them and we understand their situation. Um, Ronnie, I know I was kind of jumping all over a little bit. Yeah, yeah. They, I so I think there was a study done. I can't remember if this was just for real estate, but I think it was like kind of across the board, like sales reps and specifically like closers. Um, for their sales, like the top performers, for all their closed sales, like the average amount of time spent was like 42 or like 45 minutes, something like that. It was a lot. It's not like 10-15 minute conversations. These are like 40 to 45 minutes. Now, I'm not saying spend 40 to 45 minutes with every single person you talk on the phone with, right? Because there's kind of different tiers. David, you were on Monday's call, right? Yeah. So Monday, that wasn't a 45-minute call, and we sort of got to talking about an offer numbers, but because there was a number of other indicators that was like, okay, this is not a motivated seller. Like this isn't someone that we want to spend a lot of time with. But it wasn't until, kind of those other indicators pop up first. So when you talk to someone that's a motivated seller, it's like you got to play the game at first, right? It's like we've got to set the expectations and at least start the conversation. Usually within the first like 5 to 10 minutes, you can determine, is this a long conversation or not? Is this someone that I should be spending, a good amount of time with or not? The people that are not motivated, or it's definitely not a good fit. It's they make it pretty clear very early on, right? And these are the, hey, just make me an offer. Look, you guys called me and said just come on, just give me an offer. Or look, hey, I mean, look, I told the VA for the right price. I mean, look, I'm living here. I'm not, I don't want to move. I just upgraded everything last year. I mean, if I were to sell this house, I would need, like twice what it's worth. Right. So like though that kind of language, typically those people, it comes out right in the beginning. And the other thing, guys, like the other thing when I first got started, I was like, man, like how do I handle these objections? Like how do I get over like that person that's like, just make me an offer? It's not that important. The reason being is because that person's not, like, 9 times out of 10, more like 99 times out of 100. It's okay if you like don't smoothly handle that objection, because you want to get off the phone with that person anyways. Right. So don't get kind of too bent out of shape. The nice thing with objections is when you're talking to the right sellers, and when we're genuinely talking with them and genuinely kind of building that rapport and whatnot and go through the process, like I said, you're pretty much given like a huge margin of error, to where it's okay, like if you don't know all the perfect words and all the perfect questions and whatnot, because they're like, hey, this person cares, I like what's going on, yeah, we'll figure out the details. um so yeah, so that's yeah, you notice I'm kind of smiling because I've been I've been there many a times. Yeah, I'm sorry, go ahead, Ronnie. So it sounds like, I know you're kind of working with some other people and they're providing the leads. Is kind of the agreement you have with them, like anything you get under contract, like from those leads, it has to go through them. Like you can't, if someone's not a creative finance deal and they're open to a cash offer, like you can't wholesale that to someone else. Yeah, so I would ask that. Or the other thing you can do is, like, if you do talk to someone that's a good fit for a cash offer, just get it under contract as long as it's a good deal, get it under contract anyways. And even if they're like, hey, this isn't what we're looking for, we don't want this, then if you have an agreement with them because they're kind of giving you the leads and stuff, just say, hey, can I try and wholesale this, and then you guys can get like a percentage of the deal, um rather than just kind of letting it go to waste. Because um yeah, like, you want to talk to every lead, more or less the same way. We When we go through the process, the only thing that's kind of unique is really when we actually give the offer at the end. That's when it's like, oh, okay, we're going to do a cash offer, or we're going to do sub two, or we're going to do seller financing, or we're going to do a lease option, or we're going to do novation. Like, everything before that point is just, hey, I'm talking to a seller and we're trying to figure out if they're motivated. Like, so it's the same conversation, the same process. We're talking to everybody this more or less the same way, asking the same kind of questions. Um, and then at the end, it's really just it's not until the end where you're like, okay, I have a motivated seller. They definitely want to sell. And like, okay, this piece works for them. Here's our offer. Right? Or like, nope, this person's actually more of like an innovation agreement. Here's your offer. Or nope, you know what? This person's actually, a good fit for a cash offer. Boom, here we go. So, but the conversation, we want to talk with kind of every seller the same way and figure out, what's the best fit for them. And then we present whatever that is. Yeah, no problem. No problem at all. I and look, I've been there. I've gone look, I've had so many conversations where I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't know how to go through the conversation, to where I used to do the same thing, to where it's from whatever site or person. I downloaded this sales script, and it's a one page, or maybe two pages if it's really long. And it basically says, okay, like, I'm going to say this when I cold call them, and then I'm going to say, hey, would you consider this super low offer? And then they say yes. Great, like, move on to paperwork. And it's just, that's not how the conversations go. And like, when it feels like that kind of awkward, like, way too soon, like, it's that's how, like, it's wrong, right? So it's we're having conversations, we're genuinely looking to help people. And the nice thing is, there's been studies, this is by far significantly more effective, pretty much by going the route of like really genuinely caring and like looking to help them out, and asking kind of these questions and listening and so on and so forth. When we go through the process this way, thousand times more effective than, hey, well, we can do blank offer, take it or leave it, and it's 4 minutes into the conversation. Um, so, but it also, it takes time too, right? Like, it's not something you learn overnight. Like, it's a skill that, like, really, it's like going to the gym. It's not like, you can't just like look at a script, or you can't just kind of learn everything like in a call like this, and like, great, I've got it, now I can go perfectly do it. It's like, going to the gym or picking up a sport. Like, I can watch Lionel Messi, win the World Cup, and oh man, like, okay, I saw how he did that move, and how he positions himself and how he plays, soccer. But if I try to go out and do that right now, man, it is not going to look that pretty. And I'm going to be like, oh man, it looked so easy when he did it. Like, how did it look so easy? And it's just because he's done it thousands and thousands and thousands of times. Not saying it needs to take you thousands and thousands of times. You know, you'd be surprised kind of how quick, when you kind of take the stuff and you're implementing it. you can pick it up really quick. But the most important part is, it's going to take reps, of going on the phone. Same thing with going to the gym. You can actually see a really significant change in kind of body, physique, weight, whatever, really quick. But to get to that, like 3% body fat and like ripped abs and all that stuff, it takes a long time. But 80% of it you can actually get done in a really short period of time. When you kind of work hard and you're taking the action. One thing, the other thing that's really good, when kind of talking and we're at that mid portion and we're going through motivation, one of the things is what I call deal killers. So, and specifically referring to like other people. So we're trying to figure out, and that's really what we're looking to uncover the whole time when we're asking these questions. Like, what are the things that are going to make this deal not happen? Even if they wanted to say yes, and if they wanted to move forward, what are the things that just like, this is here, and it's we can't make this happen unless this is resolved. A lot of those times it's another person, right? That's the most frustrating one. And almost every time you talk to someone, there is a person like that. Whether it's a husband, wife, family member, friend, whatever. One of the things we want to do is we always want to ask, hey, Mr. Seller, if you were to sell this house, to us or anyone else, or, hey, let's just assume for a second that we're able to put together an offer for you. You loved it, wanted to move forward with it. Is there anyone that might be the slightest bit upset if you didn't at least kind of run it by them first? Right? We want to ask that. Like, who is that? Oh, well, yeah. I mean, I'd obviously I'd have to talk to my wife about it. Got it. Okay. How does she kind of feel about everything? Right? We want to ask about that. Again, this is building rapport, right? Just asking that question builds so much rapport. And at the same time, we find out about the other person, and then we're pretty much going to ask them like, well, like, what do they think? What do they need to hear in order for this to be a good, for this to be a good fit for them? And then depending on what that goes, it's like you either kind of explain to them, oh, hey, well, like, here's how you present it to them, or 9 times out of 10, what I like to do is just, oh, great, is there a time we could actually all hop on the phone together and I could just kind of walk her through things real quick? That way I can answer any questions that she might have. Right. And what we want to do is we really want to be the person that kind of gets to talk to them on the phone. Because again, that will build rapport with her. And that person is an influencer, right? A really, really big influencer on, she might not be on the deed, she might not, own the property, right? And all the sellers be like, it's well, it's just my name on the property. It's like, I make the decisions. That's almost never true. So, but we do want to ask, Ronnie, for you, is there any other part? So yeah, Ronnie, for you, the biggest thing is just hold off on kind of presenting that offer and like talking about the terms, and start every conversation at the beginning, set the expectations with them, right? Time frame, agenda, outcome, how long is this going to be? What are we going to be talking about? And what are the acceptable outcomes for this conversation? Excuse me. And then get into kind of the main part, right? Ask them a little bit. You can just start by, hey, it looks like your house. So I just want to make sure I've got this right. House is 3-bed, 2-bath, about 1,500 square feet. Does that sound about right? Yes. Great. I'm taking a quick look here. on Zillow, looks like a nice neighborhood, right? Or hey, could you tell me a little bit about the neighborhood? Or hey, what are the neighbors like? Right? Whatever question you want to put in there, right? Just to kind of ease into it. And then, and again, let them talk. We listen. And then, hey, have you thought about listing it? No. Okay. What's kind of kept you? Is there any particular reason? Right? Or hey, have you thought about listing it? Have you thought about renting it out? Have you thought about just kind of maybe fixing it up and doing it yourself? Have you thought about if it's applicable? All the other options are like, hey, have you thought about um, just kind of passing this down to your kids and letting them have it? Hey, have you thought about just staying here? It's a super obvious question that we all miss, but it's funny kind of how much information because you'll get people they'll kind of have up all this resistance and they'll push you off and like, maybe I might do this, I might do that. Yeah, I've thought about doing this, I've thought about doing that. Like, I really like it here. I don't have to say, well, hey, have you thought about just kind of hanging on to this thing and living in it for the next, 20, 30 years or whatever? Oh, well, no, actually I've got plans to I'm moving to Florida in June, right? Or no, I'm actually whatever. And it's like a hard deadline. It's hilarious how many times that has happened. And it gives you a lot of information. So, and just by asking kind of the obvious other options, listing it, renting it, fixing it up yourself. Have you thought about, just staying in here and doing nothing? Right? It's if there's anything you take from this call, ask the obvious other options, and you'll learn so much about their situation, right? Without doing it in a way of like, hey, so tell me, like, why are you motivated to sell? And they're like, well, I'm not motivated. Right? Or hey, why are you thinking of selling? Well, I wasn't thinking of selling. You called me. Or hey, what's whatever. It's there's a lot of questions to where it's too direct. So it's like we kind of have to dance around it in other ways. And this is how we do it in the most effective way that allows us to learn and uncover the most. And then at the same time, it's like you're gonna learn either, hey, we're like, this is not our seller, right? That we're looking for. Or two, you're going to know exactly what to offer them, before you even offer it. And that's really what we want. Because when we get to the offer, the offer really should be like a proposal, right? Shouldn't be proposing to people that typically most proposals, if we were to average them out, not saying that there's exceptions to every rule, but most proposals typically the person knows what the answer is going to be before they propose. An offer should be the same way, right? We should know what their answer is going to be before, and sometimes there's surprises, right? Like it's not like I'm never going to give an offer unless I know that they've already told me, hey, I'm 100% good at this number. No, but it's we don't present an offer unless like we at least know like, yeah, this should work. Like we're in the ballpark, right? So that's what we're doing by kind of asking these questions. They allow us to know like, does financing work for them? Seller finance, does sub two work for them? If not, like, does a cash offer work for them? Um, whenever you kind of make an offer, you should know, right? One of the kind of litmus tests is if you're making an offer to someone, I should know or be able to answer, why is this the best offer for them? If I don't know, and you can still do deals and not necessarily know the answer to that question. Sometimes it's, on the very, very rare occasion, you'll get someone that'll be like, hey, can you just buy it at this number? Like, yeah, I want to sell it. And, sometimes people just want to skip to the end of the line, and sell right now. And that's okay. Don't stop those people from wanting to do that. But typically we should always know why. And if not, that means we missed something in our process, with asking. There is some additional questions that we should ask. And the simplest thing you can kind of take from this is ask. Childlike curiosity, genuinely looking to help, and ask. Ask questions. Ask all the kind of obvious stuff. And then maybe even the not so obvious, right? Like still just keep asking. And you'll be able to uncover the right answer for you and for that seller. 10:01. Look at that, right on time. Got anything else, Ronnie, David? Anything else for you guys that I could do for you today? Any questions, comments, concerns? All the above. Yeah, Ronnie, if you need any more help with anything or have any more questions, every Monday and Wednesday I'm here 9 a.m. Eastern. Yeah, love to hear how it goes for you. Yeah, make those kind of shifts when you're talking with them, and I'd love to hear how you feel the conversation goes. If you feel things improved. A lot of times it's like when, oh cool, like I learned something new and then I implement it, and then it's like new kind of issues pop up, right? New things of like, oh wait, like I started doing this, but now I'm struggling with this and this, which is just like business, right? As we kind of grow a business and do things, it's just there's always going to be kind of obstacles that pop up. It's just new ones. Um, so anything I can help you guys with along the way, please don't hesitate to reach out anytime. Otherwise, we will end it there for today. Guys, thank you for tuning in, watching Wake Up and Dial. I will see you guys Monday next week, 9 a.m. Eastern, and we'll go from there. All right, guys, have an awesome rest of your week. Good luck on the phones. Go have some awesome conversations, genuinely help people. And if you need anything, let me know. Bye, guys.